Burning Sins, Chapter 3, Consequences.
Mud, please, you can't tell them.
Voices?
Nathan felt a very small pinprick of his conscious mind returning to the land of the living. A cold numbness coated his left arm, and his right arm felt as if it was on fire, like someone rubbed a strange ointment that had a burning after effect. His breathing wasn't quick, but it was shallow, as if taking in air was somehow restricted. Trying to take heavier breaths led to a string of sharp pains that stabbed into his lungs, forcing him to heave as his only working eye was slowly opening. Choking a bit on the dryness of his throat, he swallowed a bit of his saliva to clear it, feeling the mucus draw downwards as he tried to fully comprehend what was happening. But where was he? This wasn't his room. This wasn't his house.
How did I get... Oh, wait. That dream I had.
The one with the ponies, that strange hallucination during that... well, whatever it was. Did it get him arrested? No, that wasn't right. He'd be in a jail cell, not laying in a pile of sheets under the roof of what appears to be someone's worn-down shed. Feeling his limbs twitch as his five senses were all now functioning, he tilted his neck down. That was a mistake he regretted, as the scorched ring around his throat still burned with the fiery ensnarement that rope had rubbed into him. His left arm was in tatters, wrapped in gauze and bandaged from the elbow to his fingers. He managed to move his digits a bit, finding it extremely painful to do so, but possible. It seemed what he presumed to be a shotgun blast didn't completely obliterate his arm, but he could feel the exposed flesh underneath. More bandages littered his chest, covering two large holes that exposed more flesh and even some bone. The latter was definitely prevalent on his back, as while he leaned forward, he was able to spot the roll of white that covered the thin layer of skin atop his spine. Even a slashed leg was catered to, placed in a splint to keep it straight. And his eye. How was he not dead? He suffered injuries that would put 3 men down already. If not from the shock, then immeasurable blood loss. Was he just one of the few lucky ones to survive a catastrophic incident?
They're going to find out sooner or later, Marble. Just because this is the old shed doesn't mean that they won't get curious. There isn't any way we can keep them here. Limestone doesn't have the patience for guests, especially uninvited ones.
Those voices again.
Nathan turned to the door of the shed, hearing an argument happening presumably outside. So a family had found him then. They'd taken him in and let him recover under the roof, despite the chagrin of a few others.
What do you want me to do then? Dump him out in the rain where he'll freeze to death? Haul him into the wagon and just let it coast down a hill? He won't make it out there like he is now. He either stays and has a chance to live, or we abandon him and he dies. Do you want that on your consciousness, Maud?
Nathan hissed as he threw the covers off him, rolling onto his side and getting himself to sit. His knee was killing him, and upon inspection, the dark red bandage, along with its loose feeling, made him think the leg had a few severed ligaments. Or even a dislocated kneecap on top of the cut that ran deep into the bottom of his calf.
No, I don't. And that's exactly why he can't stay here, Marble. He needs some pony with professional medical expertise to properly examine his wounds. He's not a pony, but he's built like one, so it shouldn't be any trouble for them to help him. Well, okay, we can't get him to Las Pegasus. Limestone had come back halfway because of a blockade made by one of the Applewood Mountains collapsing. Construction and restoration isn't going to be complete for the next few weeks.
Nathan looked up at the shed's door, grunting as he struggled to his feet. He felt his lungs almost give from the exertion, his hand going over his chest as he coughed out a bit of blackened mucus and blood. Wiping his lip, he stalked towards the door, pressing his hand on one and opening it gently.
Then the next place is Ponyville. Pinkie Pie lives there, so she'll be able to take him off our hands and bring him to Ponyville General. Then I'll send her a letter. We can meet her halfway past the Ghastly Gorge and lend him off. I just hope that he'll make the trip. He's in bad shape. It almost amazes me that he's alive with injuries as gruesome like that.
Nathan widened his eyes as he saw 2 of those horsewomen outside. Both of them were gray in color, but one was noticeably more dressed than the other, and bore a flat mane and tail style. The other had a hair color to match her fur and appeared to be the gentler, shyer one of the pair.
Oh, good God.
This wasn't a dream. He was still in this horse land. This godforsaken plane that tore him apart on arrival. These creatures ripped him to shreds and now kidnapped him for reasons unknown to him. He could guess they were planning to lock him up, or even bury him alive. Feeling his heart pump with anxiety, Nathan knew he couldn't let these things get the upper hand on him again. But they were strong. So much stronger than a burly countryside man with very odd farmer strength. Looking back into the shed, he quickly scanned any of the shelves for a weapon. Something blunt, and heavy enough to knock them flat. Using his fists would amount to nothing against a creature twice the strength of a steroid junkie. Shuffling quickly to a workbench, he picked up an old pipe. Weighing it in his hands, he felt the sturdiness in the rusted metal. It would do for now.
Let's go check on him. Make sure the bandages are changed before we do this. I don't want him catching an infection on the way there.
Nathan almost panicked when he heard the horses approaching the door. Stepping off to the side of the door, he watched as it opened inwardly, revealing his empty bed space.
What?
Marble Pie came in first, scrambling to the bed and picking up the sheets. Maud strode in after her, the dull expression on her face showing a slim amount of surprise as the doors closed slightly. Seeing the two in front of him now, Nathan rose up the pipe and swung. A loud smack of metal on bone alerted the two, Marble spinning around just as Nathan made a second swing to Maud's face, knocking her flat. Turning around just as Marble began to scream, she was silenced just as quickly as Nathan scraped the pipe across her jaw, the hit sending her to the floor. Dropping the pipe as pain flooded in his arms, Nathan clasped onto his left elbow, his bandaged and skinless forearm flaring with unbridled burning agony.
God damn it.
Looking down at the two unconscious mares, Nathan glanced at 3 chairs off to the side, as well as some old chains and rope. Dragging the chairs over, he placed them down in the center of the room. Picking up the chains, he grimaced at hefting the heavy metal, but knew these would bind them firmly. Laying down the chains, Nathan turned back to the 2 ponies, picking one up as he shut the door to the shed.
A human?
Twilight Sparkle scanned through book after book as she sat in Canterla Castle's throne room. It had been roughly a day since the events that plagued the capital city of Equestria. The changeling invasion had been repelled, and any and all stragglers had been dealt with appropriately. It seemed Cadence's theory of there still being a few insectoids within the city limits was correct. But what no pony was prepared to hear was Princess Celestia declaring their grave mistake in harassing and attacking the first presumed changeling they saw on the castle grounds. With the revelation of this new species crossing some sort of dimensional threshold between 2 realities bound by space and time, Twilight Sparkle and her friends were just as amazed to hear that Equestria had seen these creatures before, in days long since past. Flipping through the pages and texts she had brought with her, the star pupil of Celestia could find nothing on this human.
None of the history books ever mention anything about a human. Even going back to the founding of the kingdom, there isn't even a memo or journal entry.
That's because in the eyes of our generation, humanity is but a myth, a legend.
The ponies turned to Princess Luna as she stared out the nearby window towards the horizon.
You see, humans have come to Equestria before. Many times over, in fact. In the previous generations, they would come and go in special circumstances under a very specific pattern. Whenever they would arrive, it would be to share their knowledge of technological feats, or aid in defending Equestria against a great threat that ponies alone cannot handle.
Rainbow Dash blinks as she floated in the air, her mind going back and forth on what was fact and what she wanted to believe. She wanted to think that what they did was right. That guy that crashed the party was a changeling, he had to be. She didn't want to think that she just mini-rainboomed an innocent guy to the dirt twice after being shot, stabbed, and beaten in prejudice. Applejack took her Stetson hat off, holding it at her chest as she glanced down at the floor in shame. She wasn't one of those who was getting violent with the fella. Hell, in her mind, she was just trying to wrangle him down so that he wouldn't hurt any pony himself. But when it came down to it, Applejack looked back on that night and realized this human was afraid for his life. After Pinkie Pie blasted him with her party cannon, he had a look on his face that she recognized well. Pinkie Pie felt worse about the whole situation. Jumping to conclusions had been a bit of a habit for both herself and Rainbow Dash. However, out of the both of them, she went harder with it, going as far as to create scandalous gossip about the local zebra of Ponyville and aiding and ostracizing her from the rest of the village's populace. Here, in this situation, her habit not only targeted a defenseless and confused pony look-alike, but also tore him to shreds with her party cannon's lethal close-range blasts of confetti. It was downright upsetting to Pinkie. Not so much to start bawling her eyes out, but enough to sober her happy-go-lucky attitude to a mature, deflated visage of her bubbly nature. Rarity and Twilight shared some of the blame, though they did not partake in the violence themselves. Their goal was to simply help stop what they thought was a changeling from escaping. They had no intentions of harming him, as they were on the same page as Cadence. Intelligence about the hive and the ecosystem of the changeling species would help prevent future attacks from the parasitic copycats. Now that they knew they were wrong, they looked back at the whole thing and understood how stupid it was to assume it was just another bug in disguise. The way it moved, the way it avoided confrontation when needed, and most of all, the samples gotten from its blood. Its very warm and very red blood. I'll just give Nathan a healing potion, he'll be fine. Probably. Anywho, let's get on to our healthy donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Star630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and Caladis. Magic, Jock, Lucy, Rayden, Runescythe, Will, Twinkie, Luigi, Chancellor, Crust, Big Smoke, Murder Princess, Little Mighty, Solar Symphony, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.